sign on the highway. There's a fork in the road. A lifetime of lessons learned. Don't mean nothing, it shows. Armchair doctor, experts making all the rules. Selling us their theories while they take us all for fools. And there's nowhere left to hide on that freedom road. Don't tell me what to think, don't tell me how to live on that freedom road. Get your hand out of my pocket, I got no more to give, I got no more to give.
Back, I said the Aussie spirit is coming back.
I ask you yourself, did you kill your mother?
If I could be anything for you, I would be your cure. I'd pour light into your wounds to soak their poison into the potions of love. And as their darkness drained, I would tear apart your cage, molding the bars that held you to your destined wings. And if from your flight you returned, I would have sewn a blanket for you, cut fresh from the curative fabric of spring. But hopefully you fly off to that destination you were born with, the one nature.
So going back to this, so you're a GP, you're mainly working in nursing homes, enjoying your work, and I say, what was your lifestyle like? I know we're in this little flat now, but what was your lifestyle like?
Yeah, well, I had a lovely house, a partner, an income. It was great. My first mortgage, beautiful views, set in a rainforest.
And you've done all this yourself, really?
Oh, what do you mean by that?
I mean, you not silver spoon in the mouth, just this.
No.
Just your drive and your intellect and your passion.
Well, yeah. Well, after being a nurse for 20 years, you think, well, what else can I do? And I'm sick of taking orders. I want to give orders. So I did medicine.
Now we'll come to the crux of the story. That's some feedback. There's some backup. But let's get to what happened in Tasmania. So, and the thing that changed your life. And before it changed your life, did you have a sense that a big change in your life was heading your way?
No, but I knew my parents were ailing, and it was an insoluble problem because they were very keen to leave the house in a box. That was their aim in life, and I supported them in that, but I wasn't going to do anything to assist. But my father in the last 12 months turned into an old wreck. He had lots of diseases, prostate cancer. Anyway, he and I used to visit like 3 or 4 times a year with my harp contacts and concerts, and you know, it's not hard to get down to Hobart.
What do you mean concerts?
I was playing with the Tasmanian Harp Society, so we did concerts.
So these are, I'll show the harps in a sec. So you learned to play the harp. Who learns to play the harp? Why did you choose the harp?
I had long winter evenings down there, and there was a famous harp maker in the town near where I was, and I picked up the harp in London when I was travelling, and I had a harp in London for a year, and then that was in my 20s, and I didn't go back to it, so I wanted to pick it up again, and this was an ideal opportunity. And there's quite a flourishing little harp society down there.
But why the harp, though? I mean, it doesn't sound like any other instrument. There's an angelic quality about it. There's a gentleness to it. I mean, you're not going to do AC/DC on a harp.
No. It appealed to me because I also played violin as a kid in a school orchestra, and there's nothing worse than someone learning a violin next door. So a harp is not an intrusive instrument. People don't mind it. It doesn't get up their nose. It's quiet, and it's stimulating, and it's nice to make nice music.
Stimulating how?
It keeps your brain going. So to interpret reading music into playing music is quite a process.
So you can actually read music as well?
Well, you need to. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I should put that in when they say, how many languages do you speak? I speak 2.
You should. You should. There's amount of musos I meet that have no idea how to read music. I got no idea how to read music.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's funny. I know someone in a choir who can't read music.
Yeah. So anyway, here we are, and you're in Tasmania. Your father's ailing, and so tell us
I
the
got a
story.
phone call from my brother saying that she can see his teeth through his cheeks, which I took to interpret as dehydration, tending towards death because he wasn't getting out of bed. He was bedbound, he was falling. They call an ambulance to get him off the floor, and my mother would refuse to have him assessed in hospital. They were intensely private people.
What was he? What did he do for a living himself?
He was an accountant who rose to second in command of a government bank, agricultural bank. And then he went on to be someone who worked for the government assessing new business ventures and which ones to put money into and which ones to support. All the hydrofoil stuff came out in that era. So he supported that and put some money into getting them international status. And now, the hydrofoil has really taken off.
And what was your relationship like with him?
With my father,
Yeah.
fairly standard white Australian. I mean, he was sort of not remote, but he was the authority figure. He was, we got on well. He used to be, we used to clash over politics. But from being a very conservative man, when Dr. Brown came along, he joined the Greens.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you go in there. So your father's, from what I know, your father's passing away, and this is where all this stuff
It was clear
happened.
when my brother called that he was dying, so I just rang people and organised morphine for when I got down there, and flew down the next morning and saw the local GP and organised things to calm him down because he was delirious. He wasn't speaking coherently, although he did recognise me, but he was delirious and dehydrated and clearly in extremis. And I arrived and there were all these nurses and cleaners and people, who were just passing by, visitors who just wanted to have something to say about the situation because my father would be in a bed and there was blood everywhere from skin tears and it was an awful mess. So I threw everyone out and cleaned my father up and got him steadied down with some medication. And he died very quietly, very peacefully the next day. My mother, in the meantime, chronic insomniac, begged me for something to help her sleep, and then promptly died. It's not uncommon for long-term, very close partners to die very close to each other. But she died 2 days later, and everyone assumed it was my evil doing.
So this is where it came. So because she dies 2 days later, you're a GP, you've turned up, they think you've knocked her off.
Yeah. I came down explicitly to help my father die. And all I did was give him a sniff of morphine to take away some of the delirium and the confusion and the fear and the whatever pain that he might have had.
But not enough to.
No. But, and, you know, I was using these drugs all the time in the nursing homes. I was very familiar with the doses. I didn't go out of range. I would go slow with my, you know, escalating doses as things get worse. I wouldn't push the dial up. I would, you know, let everything take its course and make sure the family were on board and present. And, you know, there's lots of things that need to be done to make it a smooth death.
Is it possible with morphine to give enough that it takes the pain away, but the person is still compos mentis?
Yeah, I'm on morphine now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got any?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, morphine, you get used to whatever dose you're on. Nurse, I had to do a year of science before getting into medicine, but that was the intention. And the requirement was that we got distinctions in all our subjects. We had to get over 80% in everything, and then they would let us into medicine. So there were quite a few nurses in my group who were very keen to get into and get through medicine.
And that's something you managed to do then, so you got this distinction in everything you went for.
Yeah, and then I got into medicine, and, you know, I was just a mediocre student.
Why is that? Why was that?
Well, you know, I'd done my bit getting in there. I enjoyed it. I did an HSC as an adult student, and I topped the year for English. Which is why I thought I should write stories. No, I worked with a raconteur who said, "You're going to hear many stories in the cross. Write them down," and so I did.
So, do you have these collected somewhere?
Yeah, lots of nursing home stories. Lots of, as you're saying, the turmoil of putting people into nursing homes and then seeing them through their dying is not an easy thing.
Well, that's interesting because you actually said you went to work in nursing homes. That was a lot of the work you did as a doctor. Why did you choose that?
I really believed in people's right to die at home. So that's one of my beliefs, is that everybody has a right to die in their own bed, in their own home. And 80% of people want that, but about 15% get it. The rest are shafted into hospitals or nursing homes when the going gets tough and the family don't know what to do.
Why is that?
I just believed in... I used to jump in my car and run around and see people in their own homes and do a lot of home care and home dying. Nurses would come up to me in the nursing home and say, "Look after me, Dad. He needs someone to look after him in his final days." GPs don't do home visits anymore, and they don't make themselves very available. And I did. I would always say, 24 hours, ring me before you ring the ambulance. Anyway, it was an area that I fell into. I enjoyed looking after old people, and I thought dementia is quite fun if you're not worried about dates.
Why, though, why do you think we've built a society like this where people do go into nursing homes? Is it just money? Is it just we're uncomfortable caring for people? What do you think are the reasons we've set up this system so people don't die at home, even though they want to?
You know, there aren't as many nursing homes in places like India or China. They look after their old people, they respect their old people, and they keep them at home. We don't. Why not? Just the flavour of Western medicine, I guess. We're very, people just want to sort of load it onto the medical team. I'm dying, there's a big problem, fix it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. A lot of things are unfixable.
So here we are in Tasmania. Your father's died, then your mother dies a few days later, and then how long after the death did suddenly the police become involved?
It was actually a couple of months. I took off the next day, flew back to Sydney and tried to pick things up. I went down for a wake of sorts, and there didn't seem to be any follow-on, although they promised me there would be some follow-on. The police were very involved and searched the house and whatever.
That happened early on?
After she died, yeah. So, it's just that she wasn't supposed to die so quickly.
Yeah.
If she'd waited until it was a Friday, and I thought, I'm not going to get the palliative care team in this weekend. I should have tried, but anyway, I took it into my own hands to look after her, and then she bloody died on me. She was all right in the morning when she was sleeping calmly, and then something happened and she became very drowsy and unresponsive and not moving in the bed, and that was for about 4 hours, and then she started doing the gasping Cheyne-Stokes breathing that people often go into when they're dying, where they breathe and then they stop and then they breathe again. She was doing that for a couple of hours, and that's when I gave her some morphine, which is what you do when people are in that process of dying, where they are breathing once or twice a minute, and that can go on for ages. And I gave her some stuff to ease the passage, and didn't mention it when the police came to take the body, and they did an autopsy and said, oh look, there's all these drugs in her body. Well, most of them I wasn't responsible for, but the morphine I was. So they said I was responsible for her death. There was a lot of argument about the amounts of morphine that were detected under the different types of analysis of post-mortem blood. And there was lots of arguments about whether the amount of morphine in her body was enough to tip her over into death, or was it just palliative, which is what my intention was. And they decided on the first option, that the intention was death, that I had given it to her knowing that it was going to bring about her death, which it didn't. She was perfectly all right. I mean, she had lots of health problems as well, and she was increasingly doddery, but after a lot of falls and brain damage, she'd recovered, and he'd gone downhill, and she was virtually looking after him from a walking frame. It was pretty tragic. But they were happy enough, and they refused to go to a nursing home or assisted living or anything. They accepted council help, and they had a cleaner come in and someone to do gutters. So they were happy in their dementia, and they had a son living nearby who would look after all the appointments and scripts and shopping and stuff.
How was he? Was he of the belief that you'd
He was okay.
participated?
He didn't really understand dementia very well, so he was always...
But did he think you'd killed her?
No. But he wasn't really involved. He'd watched his mother-in-law die of Cheyne-Stokes, and it went on for hours, if not days, and he didn't want to watch his mother die. So he was in the kitchen with all the other family members and stayed away from the bedroom where the action was happening.
How were you with your mother? Were you close with your mother?
Yeah, I was very close to my mother. She was a great woman. She was a great cook. She was a country woman who married a city guy and tried to do all the right things to climb the social ladder, and she did, and they ended up quite well to do.
What was it like losing both of them so close?
Oh, it was devastating, and you know, I was still recovering from what the hell has gone on, and then I was in jail, and I'm mourning both my parents dying while in jail, you know, enforced nicotine withdrawal and all the anxieties of being, you know, in the big house and keeping my head above water. It wasn't very easy. It was winter in Hobart, so it was snowing when I'd be queuing for the public phone. It damaged me. I can't see that little lamp over there. I have to have a lamp on at night, and I've had it off a couple of times, but I just prefer to have a lamp on at night so I know where I am, and I think that's just what it is. It's a hangover from being in jail. We should put the clothes away before we came, but who cares?
Who gives a shit? There's how long after your parents died were the police were you in jail? What was the distance between?
I think it really was a long delay because they were trying to gather evidence and they didn't really have much evidence apart from hearsay. There was a a niece who felt that she was wronged by the will and didn't get as much money as she should from my parents' will. And she caused problems and said, "Oh, I poisoned her, and I was a murderer," and she caused lots of friction in the family. But we got through it. But the police.
So while this was all going on, while she's before the police arrested you,
Yeah.
did you think this would just die away and go away, or were you getting more
I was
concerned?
praying that it was. I was praying that it would, and I thought, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I did everything by the book in terms of palliative care, but I didn't do it with supervision. If I'd had, like, I'm used to this happening in a nursing home where the patient is mine.
I mean, you wouldn't get supervised in a nursing home.
Flack from this wasn't my patient, so I had no right to treat her.
Oh,
And
so
I
that was the problem.
And I used my father's medication on my mother, and I shouldn't have used his medication. I should have had separate supply for her, and I should have had a palliative care assessment of her, and it just never came to pass.
And you didn't do these things either because in their idea you were planning to murder her, or in your idea you saw she was suffering and you wanted to help.
Yeah, exactly. What do you want me to say to that?
I'm just assessing what.
That's about it. So, I thought maybe it's going to die down, but it kept bouncing back. I think because I had a little brother who was meticulous about things, and I think he was hassling the coroner's office for a death certificate, and they couldn't issue a death certificate until the cause of death had been delineated, so that's why I got extradited to Hobart.
So, what was it like to have suddenly the police turning up and you getting arrested?
Horrific. I mean,
'Cause I'm taking it for granted you probably haven't been arrested that many times in your life.
no. So there were 4 cops at the door. I think 1 was from New South Wales and 3 were from Tasmania. And they did a 4-hour or 6-hour interview in the police station in which I just said everything that I've been saying to you. And they said, yeah, well, that sounds okay, and went away, and we'll talk to our superiors. And then the next morning, police picked me up from where I was working in a nursing home.
They came to the nursing home and arrested you there?
Yep. The police arrived in the nursing home, and a message came through to me, and so I went to meet them, and I was escorted to a car, and the hand on the head. From there, I was, in a plane on my way to Risdon Jail.
So you didn't even get to go home and get anything sorted or anything?
Well, no. I managed to see my partner and hand over bank cards and passwords, and
what was his response?
that was it. He was devastated, and he was emotionally unstable. He was drinking a bottle of spirits a day, and he was a mess. I eventually got him down to Tasmania because I wasn't able to leave. I couldn't go back and organise the house for sale, but I did get it sold. I've forgotten your question.
It's all right, we're just rambling now. So you're heading back to Tasmania, heading to jail. How do you even process that what's happening? Because it must have been like, this is surreal.
Certainly was. They asked me in the holding cells if I wanted to be in a public or a single cell. And I went, I think a single cell would be safer. And all night I could hear the screams of ice addicts. I got very used to it in the jail. Screams of ice addicts in the middle of the night who just...
What are they screaming about?
About coming down from ice and being in lockup. And whatever they'd been caught doing, organising money.
So when you say, are they screaming like in agony or just screaming in rage?
Screaming in anguish, screaming in frustration, and, get me out of here and whatever. So I'm glad I was in a single cell.
How do you keep your own countenance together, though? I mean, how long before you could get a lawyer to come and talk to you? And What was the lawyers?
My family organised lawyers, so the lawyers were there. I thought it'd be a simple case of existential distress, which is one of the reasons they give for hastening death, existential distress. My mother certainly had it.
Can you explain what that actually means?
Yeah, it's people who are at the end of life and are not coping, but their body's not ready to die. So they're kind of stuck in this limbo plateau area, they call it, on the plateau, and then eventually you come off the plateau and you die.
Is this what the poets used to call heartbreaker?
There are heartbroken long-term couples and death close to each other.
How close were they spiritually? You know, were they?
They were intensely into each other and not needing any other people, very private.
So even if they were demented, to lose that connection and you're already sick, that would have had a profound effect.
Yes. Sorry, I'm getting a wave and I couldn't.
Take your time. With no rush. Honestly, there's no rush.
I get these waves.
Waves of...
Nausea. Anyway. Now I'm having radiotherapy to this metastasis, and after the radiotherapy I come home and collapse for like 10 hours. It's really draining body to have radiotherapy. You have this ionized radiation, and I got 4 treatments left. I got 1 today.
When did the cancer turn up? While you were in jail?
No, it wasn't when I was in jail. I spent 3 months in jail. You know, my lawyers managed to get me out, but on parole or whatever you call it. I wasn't allowed to leave the state. I had to report to the police 3 times a week, and then twice a week, and then weekly. And it just went on and on and on.
It's 3 months. And if you get nausea, if you need to go anywhere, let me know. If you got, when you were in that jail, can you explain what that, I've never been in jail, but what was that like? And within that, were you having also a relationship with your parents? Were the spirits of your parents reaching out, you know, were you talking to them as if like, how did I get here? I mean, what was going on?
Basically, it was keeping my head down. I got known as Dr. Death, and in fact it was a really useful box to be put in, and I was happy to play along and do, you know, funny faces. And when people knew I was a doctor, they would come to me with their wrist strains and whatever other injuries, and of course I would be free and easy with... I used to be a naturopath before a doctor, so I've got a lot of experience with treating without drugs. A lot of stuff is easy to treat if you explain to them what's going on and how to deal with it. And so I had kind of preferential status as an old doctor who murdered his mother. So that was, you know, they used to say you couldn't murder anyone without a script pad. But keeping, so, you know, I had to fit into that category. I used to work in the kitchen just with laundry, just for something to do, and I used to bounce around the place and have fun, because a few of the other inmates would be having fun, so I'd join in and have fun in the laundry, and we'd have laundry going everywhere. Anyway, they offered me, you know, do you want to run this? Do you want to do this? Because I was helping the people who were doing it with their figures, you know, how do you add all these figures up? And I thought, oh God, get me out of here. I don't want to get ingrained into life inside. But everybody was telling me that there's no way you will get probation for murder. There's no way you'll get away with this. You're going to go down. You'll never get out. There was one guy that killed a couple of girls with a better brick, and he was in for life. And he used to bounce around the place saying, you know, forget outside, it'll just drag you down. Just forget, this is where you live, this is it. This is, you know,
You also met Martin Bryant, or did you? Or you were in the
Martin Bryant was, I was in a cell for, crazy people to start with because they thought I was a suicide risk. They'd had a doctor in the last 12 months who'd suicided after murdering his mother or wife or whatever. So they were cautious that I was a suicide risk. I was put in this funny farm of a barracks where it was all these people with mental health problems, and they would yell and scream in anxiety. It takes a week or two for someone who comes in under the influence of ice to get over it, to get through ice addiction, and suddenly I'd find myself buddied up in a two-person cell with someone who couldn't sleep, who had to have the TV on all the time that, was coming off ice. And that was pretty difficult, but I survived. But it really was like a very different world and a completely different set of rules and staff that are all burnt out and have lost their, like nursing homes, they've just lost their humanity. They've lost the ability to recognise the people behind the labels or whatever. It was just... And, 80% of them are there for victimless crime. A lot of them are chuffers who grow dope in their backyard and got done for 40 plants, and they're in jail for, 2 or 3 years because the system is so slow to get people out of, that limbo of, you're being charged but not sentenced. So, or not charged, but waiting for a decision. They appointed another judge because of the backlog. Tasmania's got the worst backlog. Things haven't changed.
What was the trial like?
Grueling. It went on for ages and ages and ages, and that's when I...
When you say ages, you're talking a year?
And back, and they'd say the police would delay and say they were waiting on transcripts of phone conversations, and there were all these delaying contacts, manoeuvres which stretched the whole thing out to 4 years.
4-year trial?
Over 4 years of in and out and, another hearing, and it just went around and around. And they were bugging me and one of my brothers, and they were sure that we were going to have some family conspiracy they were trying to uncover. Well, they didn't find anything apart from a disgruntled niece who wanted to make trouble.
When they were going the trial, was there a crucial bit of evidence they said, okay, that's how they convicted you upon?
No, there wasn't. There were, notes that my brother had put in a little notebook, just reminding him of dates and events, and they tried to make something out of that, but they couldn't. I wrote a long letter to the coroner explaining my position and trying to excuse myself. And then I didn't use the letter, and I was going to use it as my defence, but the letter disappeared. The police went to Woy Woy, where I was living, and searched a couple of houses and interviewed a lot of people, and found out that my partner, who was a complicating feature of the whole process, was actually mentally unstable. So I think a lot of their evidence suggesting that there was a murder started to crumble and look, less. My team were telling me they've got no case. Well, they did. The whole thing was called off because of the diagnosis of cancer. So one Christmas, my legs swelled up, and it was found that I had this clot in my IVC, and it was all on for the cancer. That kind of took over.
What year was that?
I think it was 2010. No, 2000, I don't know.
So they decided that once you had cancer, basically...
That I was too unwell to face trial or to understand the implications of the trial.
So I never actually went to trial itself. There was never any conviction officially?
No. But I got deregistered because of the cancer and the morphine, and they didn't want... I was obviously a difficult one to deal with. So I got deregistered and I haven't bothered to fight that, although I could. I'm perfectly compass, but I've got this thing called cancer-related fatigue, made worse by radiotherapy, which really lays you low. So I can get up and do things for a few hours, and then I've got to collapse for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I can see you collapsing it. So where the cancer's all through you now, you're saying it's...
No, but it's spread to 2 other areas, and despite treatment, we don't seem to be able to knock it. And at the moment, it all seems like everything's falling off. So I think I've fallen off my plateau. Now I'm getting fluid build-up and signs that, blood parameters that go up when your cancer is active. And mine was previously below 5, and now it's shot up to 60. And with the varices and with the ascites, it's fairly clear that everything's going downhill. Not much they can do, really. The radiotherapy is palliative, so there's no intention or hope of cure. They're just going to reduce the size.
It's amazing the lives we lead, isn't it?
Yeah,
The lives we
it's
think we
funny.
lead the
I
life.
never ended up a retired GP. I thought I'd have a cushy life.
Yeah.
A pool. I thought it was the dog.
But I'm just saying, you lived in this great house, you've done all this stuff, and now you're in this little flat. How did you end up in this little flat?
Eventually I ran out of money. Completely ran out of money. I was living in a bed sit in the
So the
cross.
lawyers took everything.
Yeah, basically, yes, they did. So I had enough money to escape, it felt like escape, to Sydney. It was after the COVID lockdown, blah-de-blah, but I got out of Tasmania, back to Sydney, got into a nice bed sit and was there quite comfortably for a couple of years, but then the rent suddenly jumped and I couldn't stay. So here I am, and there are worse things in the world. There are people in basements with bombs falling outside. I've got my own bathroom, my own kitchen, my own big bed. What else do I need? And a dog, he keeps me going. If it wasn't for the dog, I wouldn't get out of bed.
Can I ask you, and I have to ask you yourself, did you kill your mother?
No. I eased her passing, which is what I do, what I had been doing. But I forgot that it wasn't really my job. In a nursing home, it's my job. With my mother, I should have pulled in outside help so that I wasn't acting alone.
So that's the one mistake you made, is you didn't get a second in to be...
That's right, and I've worked with the palliative care team down in Tasmania quite a lot, doing home nursing, home death. So I was familiar with the territory, but this time it just all went wrong.
One simple mistake, and this is the prize.
Yeah, here we are.
Do you ever talk to your parents spiritually or anything about thanks or anything like that?
Look, I do, and quite a lot. I don't get much recap. I was trying to contact them when I was in jail, and I managed to get this vision of my mother whizzing past me. I've had a couple of dreams since, but nothing untoward. I mean, I've had psychic dreams before, but I've not had anything from my parents, no. No ooby-dooby, no weird stuff, no.
Do you feel... I don't know, what are you feeling now after this?
Yeah, I feel really angry, which is a pity, because it's a pretty useless emotion, but I feel resentful and angry that all this has happened, that no one could see that I was acting out of love and compassion, and that there was no intent. I thought it was, if I was sitting in front of a panel of doctors, which I imagined I would be, not a panel of police, then I would have been able to explain myself. But police just, you're a murderer. Blah-de-blah. Where do you want us?
Did you know, when you were in jail, I'd say that was the greatest test of your character and Because, I mean, you literally, most people are terrified of ending up in there. You got nothing. You could be murdered, you could be raped, you could be, who knows what's going to happen. Were you surprised that you had the strength to get through?
Yeah, yeah. I had a lot of, as I said, people saying you'll never get out of here. But I held on to hope, and I thought, no, it'll work out. It'll work out. I didn't know it was going to work out so dramatically with cancer.
How do you hold on to hope when literally hope isn't visible anywhere?
I don't know. Hope is very important. Even when, your chips are down, hope's important. So palliative care specialists are told, don't take away hope. Even though people are dying, don't take away hope. So I just kept hoping that everything would sort out and that this extraordinary experience was going to end sometime. And I wrote a lot, and I listened to the way men, treat each other and the way they behave and the way they laugh. And yeah, men are strange, and when you cage them up, it's not good. And when they're not bad people, particularly, they've just done some minor crime, you think, why are they forever in jail, swelling our jail numbers, and the jails are overcrowded and blah-de-blah. Anyway, I managed to get through it, being the mad doctor.
And you wrote a book.
And I wrote a book. I mean, I wrote a book just to tell the story from my point of view, because I'm not a murderer. And I also had a whole lot of short stories about people getting into trouble with dying and the problems that arise. And I wrote those stories down, and I published some with my story, really just to pad the book out, because my story's quite short. And I needed to fill up the book, and I had all these short stories, so with encouragement I put them in, but I kind of regret it afterwards. It doesn't really matter now.
It's interesting how they can balance someone's life on an incident. I mean, to me it looks like, well, I buy it, what you're selling, but here you are, you've done nursing, so you've obviously cared for people, been a doctor caring for people, and yet, at the end here, for this one thing that you didn't get a colleague in, your legacy is Dr. Death.
Yeah.
When in actual fact you were Dr. Care.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I thought I was a very good doctor, but I mean, it was just where I was led and what I developed as a little corner of practice, doing these 24-hour on-call country visits, nursing home rounds. I'd go to, every nursing home every week and just say, how's everyone doing, and see whatever is brewing and try and head off things before they get worse. And I thought I was a great doctor. I thought I was a good doctor, and nobody complained. I mean, of course.
So you never had any complaints in your time as a doctor?
Only one. We had a Saturday clinic where people would walk in, walk out, no appointment, just really for missing scripts and things that just need to be done right now. So my baby's got sore throat, swollen glands, those sort of things you deal with straight away. This woman came in with a 4-year-old, and it was a typical mother not coping and child running all over the place. And don't do that, Henry, and don't turn the taps on and off, Henry, and don't jump up and down on the weighing. The kid was destroying my office. So I said to her, and the kid quite sternly, right, sit there and don't do anything. I mean, I didn't bring out, I've got all these toys to distract and amuse children, but I decided it was a clinic where we had to push people through to get things done, and I wasn't going to. This woman was going on and on and on about how the child had been on this many antibiotics and seen this many doctors, and it was just getting worse, and what was I going to do about it? One of those women. And anyway, I scared the child into submission, so he sat in the chair, and then he'd get up to go and do something and wreck something, jump on something else, and I'd go that and he'd sit down again. So I got him scared of me. That was good for me. So the next day the clinic manager comes in and says this woman rang and said you were really beastly to her child and you're rude and you're abrupt and, you know, blah-de-blah, or whatever she said. And I said, oh, blow her, I'll see her in court. You know, the child was impossible. She didn't know how to control the child. And all I did was strong-arm him into submission. Anyway, I went home and thought about it and thought, oh, this is so unjust. But if you get a complaint against you that has to be worked through the courts or whatever, it will stay with you for the rest of your working career. You know, oh, there was a complaint made about you back in... Yeah. So I rang this woman up and I ate humble pie and I said, I'm terribly sorry I didn't have the time to, you know, engage your child and I should have spent more time engaging him, and I'm sorry it was a clinic and I was trying to, you know, push people through, and that's how our clinics work on a Saturday, and I'm terribly sorry. And that was the end of it. But I thought basically, fuck you. I just had to eat humble pie, and I did.
Can I ask, a lot of people in prison might not have been able to hold on to hope and would have, you know, lost it. And you managed to hold on through that. You're in Tasmania for 4 years. Well, obviously, wherever you were, people were saying, oh, that's the Dr. Death who got off. I mean, did you have that where were you living?
No, I was living in a country town called Cygnet, and we did have friends in town and who managed to accommodate us first in a shed garage and then a shed, and then eventually we rented a farmhouse.
Oh, so your partner came down to stay with you?
Hey?
Your partner came down?
Yeah, I got him down, sold the house so we had money to live on. We went through the house savings with the lawyers and, you know, not having an income and not being able to work.
Did he eventually leave?
Who?
The partner?
No, I left him. It was awful. And I thought I was dying, and I was on these tablets for the cancer, which just laid me low. And he would walk around going, when are you going to die? When are you going to die?
That's nice.
So I left.
But what I was saying was you held on all through prison, you held on all through that. And I remember John was saying to me, he's supposed to be dying of cancer, he's still alive. What is it in you that holds on when the times are tough and other people give up? What is it about you that holds on?
I don't know. I don't know. I meditate. I don't know how much good that does, but I do meditate. And I'm still here, but I actually think I'm just coming off the plateau now. I'm slipping down the slippery slope, and I've probably only got 6 months left. I need someone to take my dog. So that's all. Hope, you hold on to it. You just... If I'd lost hope, I don't know what would have happened. This guy that murdered with a Besser brick, I mean, he was just resigned to life in prison, and this is...
Did he ever say why he did it?
Good as it gets. No, I didn't really go there with him. I didn't really go there with Tweedledum. And Martin Bryant has been turned into an emasculated, over-medicated, stumbling zombie who could still thrash me at drafts.
You played him at drafts. Do you think he did it?
He was, well, yeah, he definitely did it, but he was quite mad. You could, you know, the other inmates would get him onto guns, and that was his favourite subject. So he'd talk about the guns and the gun shops in Hobart and all the guns that he'd had, and because he kept suiciding, because, you know, his life was completely pointless. He went into the public area, meet people, and food was thrown at him, abuse was thrown at him, he couldn't go there again. So they filled him up with drugs, turned him into a zombie, and then he just ate and ate and ate. Well, psychiatric drugs often make you... So he was huge, he was like Tweedledum. And...
when you say no, he did it, did he talk about doing it? Did he...
He loved talking about guns, but he didn't talk about the actual incident, and I didn't spend a lot of time wanting to go there. Yeah. So I just played drafts with him, and he'd beat me every fucking time. And I think this guy is so over-medicated, he can hardly walk, and yet he can still thrash me at drafts.
Do you feel one of the reasons you're holding on is that there's been a great injustice here, and you don't deserve this from the amount that you've given in life?
Yeah, I think that is something that keeps me going. And I don't think I spend a lot of time on it. I don't think about my health. I just deal with what I've got.
Yeah, but underneath that, though, there is. You're actually a good doctor. You're a good man.
There is resentment and there is anger, and that, in a way, that does keep me going. It's pretty sad, really. I mean, I don't want to be full of anger and resentment, but that's the way it is.
Is there any appeal? I know it's probably too late now, but there's any...
Appeal process?
But you never had a court... You never actually had
No,
a
it
conviction?
died, and then it went on in the coroner's court. The coroner revived the case
Oh.
and had a hearing in which they went through all the evidence again, and they decided again that I had purposely killed her. So I didn't achieve anything.
And what did they base on the fact that he purposely killed her? Just the amount of morphine in her system?
Yeah. Which was debatable, because, what's lethal and what's not lethal, it's very hard to say. And anyway.
One last question, philosophical, because I can see your harps here, and I've seen the literature that you read. What is your view of the actual story of your life now that you're coming towards the final acts?
Oh, a bit of a tragedy, bit of a joke. Bit of a right roll mess up. Bit of a, is there someone I can talk to just explain what happened? And surely there's some higher power. I could appeal to the Attorney General now. I could try and get, compensation money for being falsely arrested, but they're going to say, well, you did it and we were right to arrest you. Danger to the community. I was dubbed a danger. Dr. Death. Don't let him out. Don't let him treat anyone. Your nurses asking me to look after their parents because they know that they're just going to get shafted in the system and end up in a corridor under fluorescent light breathing their last. Since no one wants to die in a corridor. Nobody wants to die like that. Lift.
Oh, you're blocking it?
See ya.
See ya.
I lost my face in a storm cold fear. They bought my voice, then took my tears. When you look at me now, I'm a poster child, hiding all my pain under a smile. And you'll never see me, because that's not allowed. I was born of light, now I'm a shadow of a shadow. But I dream of flying to a sky called me, where I'm singing in the clouds like a freedom banshee. And they're trying to calm me down to the safety of their cage, yet all they have is money, and I've already paid. Soar high into myself. The moon plucked me from the dust on their shelf. Can you see me whirling through their bars? I'm warming my soul in a sea of stars. And all I have to do to reach the sky is dream that I kissed all my fears goodbye. And all I have to do to reach the sky is dream that I kissed all my fears goodbye. For this land is built under an endless sky, and the key to their cage is the courage to fly. And the key to their cage is the courage to fly. Soar high into myself,